many of you were here last night for that outrageous film? Isn't that cool? You know what blew my mind about that film? It's the second time I've seen it. And my wife and I got here like 10 minutes early, and the whole place was already packed. And of course I thought, how do we get here 10 minutes early on Sunday morning? And get back. I wouldn't want to be convicting right away. So, Sonny Golden, I know you had to stand up the other day, but could you stand up again? Because I want to say something about, this is my friend Sonny. She got saved, was it last year's youth camp? And she started bringing her whole family to this church. Guys, she always goes, what are they going to do? Just, but you know what? There's fruit, and it's fruit that remains. So it's a great time. Jason, I believe the two kids from the tragedy that happened recently are now flying to the mainland with the older one's dad, and so we're still praying that all that works out. Okay, let's turn our Bibles to the book of Mark, chapter 1. And as you're turning there, I want to talk to you about this manly greeting I have. I have a man's man greeting, where I come up from behind and grab a guy on the shoulder, and I just punch him in the chest, right around the sternum, and I think it's so manly. And so the other day, I'm in the post office, and I wasn't wearing my glasses, but that's no big deal. And so I thought, there's my friend, Gary Speaks. Known this guy for decades, right? Big guy, MMA guy, and this guy had the same exact hair, the glasses, even the voice. And so I thought, I'm a man's man. And I go up from behind, grab him, and pooh, hey! And the guy turns around and gets shocked. And I think, well, of course, he's so glad to see me. And then he goes, hi, my name is Dan. I go, where's Gary? I thought you were Gary. And I put on my glasses. You're not Gary. And the guy goes, no, but I bet he's really good looking. Well, even manly men have mothers-in-laws. And Peter, these guys I've been talking about this morning, they're all fishermen. These are men, manly men. And it's interesting, we want to see how they're able to treat or deal with the mother-in-law. And the theme this morning is Jesus has got to be real in our home, or it ain't real at all. Okay? So, with that, I want to talk about how Jesus, you already saw that. Christ must be real in your home. Let's read. I'm reading from the New King James Bible, beginning in verse 29. As soon as they had come out of the synagogue. So, this is sandwiched between two demonic kind of activities and services. Just heavy duty services. He had just cast out a demon in verse 27. Probably had a little healing going on after that. So he's coming home to Peter's house. They entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. So you got two sibling rivalries, and you got the sons of thunder. But Simon's wife's mother, now that's a shock to us former Catholics, because we thought Peter was the first pope, and as a pope you're not supposed to be married, but Peter wasn't the first pope, and he was married. Simon's wife's mother lay sick with a fever, and they told him about her at once. So he came, took her by the hand, and lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her, and notice, she served them. At evening, verse 32, when the sun had set, they brought to him all who were sick and those who were demon-possessed. And notice, the whole city was gathered together at the door. Now that's quite an effective outreach, I would say. Then he healed many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons, and he did not allow the demons to speak because they knew him. Now, here's how he's got to be real in the moment. There was a seminary professor, Howard Hendricks. He taught at the Dallas Theological Seminary, just a great man, vet, very good teacher. He's gone home to be with the Lord now, but the story that he would tell is that he was once traveling and speaking at various places, and And after church, his little girl goes, "Hey, Daddy, you sure are funny in church. Why aren't you funny at home?" Meaning, have you ever been there where you're accused of being one thing in church and another thing at home? Gee, you're so patient with people in church, says your spouse. How come you can't be patient with me? Gee, you treat everybody so lovingly and you're so gentle and all that. You're just different at home. How about this one? Where you grew up with your guys in the hood or whatever, and then you both get saved. And you're not sure how to treat each other. You're not sure how to be spiritual around each other because you know each other's faults. You know their history. You know what they're really like. But this morning we want to talk about being just as real in the home as we are in church. My son, one of the greatest compliments he ever gave me was, said, "Dad, you were the same thing at home that you were in church." But then later on he said, "Yeah, just as boring as it." No, but I was thinking that's what I meant. Okay, Sarah Conliff, the girl who just shared announcements, the Pastor Jason's intern. That means she does all his work for him. But we were doing a Christians on Campus at Whitehall High School this past week, and she said something extremely interesting. Said the biggest obstacle to getting people saved is Christians. Wow. Christians who are judgmental. Christians who are hypocritical. Christians who are one thing in church and another thing at home. So, here we go. Christ must be real in your home. He's between these two services. He just healed. He just cast out a demon. I mean, it's pretty intense. All right? Later on that night, the entire town of Capernaum is going to show up at the door. A bunch of demon-possessed people, a bunch of sickly diseases. Can you imagine? People would cough and everybody, wow. So it's kind of like a break time. He's trying to recharge his batteries, if you will. So how do you think they were mentally at this point? Because probably synagogue, or what we would call church, went a little longer that morning. Right? They weren't planning on having a deliverance ministry. They weren't planning on some demon-possessed guy coming up and start screaming at Jesus. And then Jesus says, "Get out of him." And so it appears it went a little bit late. And now they're just physically, they're men, they're hungry. There's Jesus, there's these two. This is a motley group. Not Jesus, I'm sorry, but these other guys. Now, it seems to be a spontaneous invite. Or I'd like to think so anyway, where Peter goes, "Hey guys, let's go to my house for lunch." Have you ever done that? I love doing spontaneous things. I'm not the world's greatest planner, but man, I just love to be spontaneous. So one day, after church, I invited 16 people over to my house, not that immediately, but that week, and I thought, I forgot to ask my wife, who's my cook, and so I gave her the good news at home. I thought, "Hey, babe, I invited 16 people over for this week. Isn't that cool?" "You did what? You invited it? Well, yeah, we're a team, right?" All of you in premarital counseling know, team, that's the big thing. We're a team, right? Yeah. Right now we're a baseball team and you are up to bat. What are you going to cook for all these people? And so, obviously it was grill time after that. That's what I cooked. So, I think this is great for two reasons. To have a spontaneous invite. Well, number one, he doesn't want to leave Jesus back in church. For some people, it's kind of like you get your time clock, your spiritual time clock, and you punch in the beginning of the church, and you punch out, and you say, "Okay, Jesus, I'll see you next Sunday." But I like this idea that Peter's going, "You know what? No, I want to bring you home with me. I want to see you there with me." And so I like that. That's the first reason. The second reason is he feels comfortable having Jesus at his home. He says, "Yeah, you know what? You're welcome to whatever. Come on over, just hang. We like being around you, and you'll love my house. You'll love my house." Now, I read this story of the room of porn. where this guy was so locked into pornography, he would take out all the magazines, he'd rip them up, and he plastered them all over his bedroom. It just had, you walk in, it was the room of porn. I didn't know in person, read this thing, but it was the room of porn, and you just go, this is crazy, and he thought it was, utopia or something, but somebody gave him a picture of Jesus. And so he put Jesus in the center of the wall. And he backed off and he looked at it and goes, that doesn't look right. And so he went and he pulled off the topless girls around. Gee, that's a little better, but still kind of balked him. So he took off another layer and another, and eventually, by having Jesus there, he took down all his pornography because it just didn't fit. Now, if you invited Jesus over to lunch after church, anything you'd have to clean up first? Would you have to say, you're welcome in the front porch. Don't go any further. How about, okay, sit right there. That's it. I'll get you everything. Or do you just say, got it. The whole house is yours. Whatever you want, check it out. Wherever you want to go. I loved how last night, at the end of that movie on Sex and Money, which is it's a crazy title, but it's all about sex trafficking, especially in America and particularly here in Hawaii at the end. And how Jeremy Munoz got up at the end and said, I want to address you men, because this is a horrendous thing that's going on. But it is, supply and demand, and the men are demanding this kind of sexual opportunity. And it starts with pornography. And he said, you want to do something, stop pornography. In your own life. Let's take a stand against that. And then let's join forces and see how God can use us to reach out to these poor women who are being exploited. Now, are you still picturing these men? Like I say, okay, we got the two sons of thunder, right? James and John. These guys are cuckoo. They are just cuckoo. They're just ready to go off. Jesus gave them that title. Jesus, see, in their culture, they would notice as they observed someone, they would say, okay, you are the son of. That's something characteristic. Or you're the daughter of. Now, it could be the daughter of grace. That's wonderful. But in this case, you know what you guys remind me of? Thunder. You're just ready to explode. You're ready to go off. And so here come these two heavyweights after church. I just have this picture of them. God is heavy. And we're here to tell everybody. So that's the sons of thunder. And then you got, Peter and his brother, these two sibling rivals. Who, Mom always liked you best, if you remember the Smothers Brothers. And so, and then you got these four guys, and then you have Jesus, right? And so here comes Peter, and they're thinking, or these other guys are thinking, they knew the real Peter. They've known, they were fishermen. They're on the same lake at Galilee. They're in the same town of Capernaum. They grew up together. They know you, Peter. Don't try to fool me. I know the real Peter. And so here they're thinking, okay, we're just coming home from synagogue. This should be interesting. What do you mean? Well, I know how the old Peter was after synagogue went long. I know how the old Peter was before he knew Jesus, the BC days, before Christ did. Yeah, he'd come home after if church went long, and all he'd do was complain. What was that sermon all about, What was it? That girl doing announcements was chewing gum. And what's that stupid PowerPoint? What was that all about? That one picture just bugged me. And that song, and then the chair was, Well, they didn't have announcements or PowerPoint or guitars, but they had things to complain about. Here's the people, I know you, Peter. I've been to church with you before. And whenever we go long or into extra innings, you come home and complain about it all during lunch and kind of make it miserable for everybody else. So this is going to be interesting. And so here comes Peter's wife. Well, first before we have the mother-in-law, we have his wife. Who is she? We don't even know her name. No, we know she existed. We're not sure if she was even in the room. Well, we can only assume she was. Now, Paul the Apostle, he wrote about her. And he said that Peter and his wife would travel together, which I think I highly recommend. Whenever I've taken Karen with me on a mission trip, be it Japan or India or even a trip to Israel together, it adds so much to what we can bring to the table. It is, besides just being accountable and sharing the same experiences, she also co-ministers in many places. And so I think it's great that this guy will travel with Peter the Apostle. Now, there's two historians. One is Clement of Alexandria, and another is Eusebius. And they both wrote that this gal, Peter's wife, was martyred. Matter of fact, she was led to her death right in front of Peter. Can you imagine that? Peter is watching his wife of decades walk by to be martyred. And supposedly his last words, "Remember thou the Lord." Awesome. Well, they've been in heaven together for a couple of thousand years by this point. Now, for the mother-in-law, that's what M-I-L means. And how many of you are going, how many, and you're going, was that a song? No, it wasn't recognizable, sorry. But how many, that for this mother-in-law to ever understand Peter and her daughter, for her to ever grasp what they're going through and their calling in life and their missions, their ministry, she needs a personal touch from Jesus. It's not something that she's going to read about or theorize. She needs a personal touch. The problem is, not now. Not now. Right now, I don't feel like doing dinner. Right now, I don't feel like cooking. I don't feel like serving. I don't feel like having people around, right? And then most men in this room realize when a woman says, "Not now," you just back off. So here's the mother-in-law going, "I have this crazy headache, fever." Actually, Luke in his gospel says the mother-in-law had a violent fever. She is in no mood to have people. Have you ever been there? I usually like going to Bible study, but not now. I usually like going to church, but not now. I usually like having people over for dinner, but not now. And so that's what she's just having this a crippling, violent fever. And then here comes Peter. "Hey, what's for lunch? Me and the boys. Spontaneous. Not now. Peter, your timing is lousy. Okay? Do you realize what's going on in this household? Do you realize what we're dealing with? And now you brought him. Are you serious?" Now it's interesting because you have to think about the customs back in the Middle East. When Karen and I first went to India, we were a little uncomfortable with this because what happens is the wives, they will come and serve you food and stand by you like this. And if there's, one kernel of corn missing, "Oh, let me give you some more. One little thing of rice, oh, here, take some more." And you're going, "Why don't you just go, oh, no, not in our culture." And I'm going, wow. See, it's so weird that we would go, I'd go out with Daniel, the pastor, and we always do Bible studies like every night, and we come home, and they eat late at night. They're like the Brazilians, 9:30 or whatever. So Daniel comes home with me, and he walks in the door. "Shut the door." That's his wife's name. "Shut the door. The men of God are home." Wow, and the women just start, wow, pots and pans and things are flying, and boom! I thought, this is great. I was thinking I was going to go there and change everything, I told this one guy, I'm going to have a foot washing service where the men are going to wash the bride's feet in this church of 900 people. And he goes, "Oh, no, you can't do that." So once I got, we did it because I thought, once I saw what's going on, I go, they've really got a good thing here. So I did it one time after church, or after a Bible study at night. I come home, "Karen, the man of God is home." Shh. Wait for a commercial. This is how it works. But see, in your culture, The women would be used to serving and standing and waiting on you. And here she's going, oh, I got this fever, I can't even get out of bed. So, lousy time. If she was going to go by her feelings, Jesus would be eating at McDonald's that night. See? She said, just not now, just get out of here. I feel lousy. I read about this mom who asked her daughter, she had a bunch of friends over for dinner, and she asked her daughter, honey, why don't you pray the way mommy does? And she goes, okay, dear Lord, why did I ask all these people over for dinner? I liked it. You liked it. That's all. That's the only thing you're going to remember about this sermon. Okay. Maybe she's thinking this. I would serve the Lord if only, and then fill in the blank. If only I wasn't so sick. If only I didn't feel this way. If only I had more of this or less of that. If only. And she could have used it as a great excuse, or she could have just surrendered to the Lord and see what happens. And maybe have the best night in months and months. So, yeah, I like this. It says they, the apostles, told Jesus about the mother-in-law. That's how you do it. You see, before you tell others about Jesus, you tell Jesus about others. Maybe that's why a lot of people don't have a lot of fruit when they're witnessing. Pastor Jason shared an outrageous point about this while I was on the mission field. He said, if your goal is to win that argument, you're wrong already. And that's how sometimes we get so zealous, I just have to win. No. You don't have to win an argument. You have to love this person into the kingdom. And so before you tell that person about Jesus, tell Jesus about that person. You'll find your witnessing is much more effective that way. And they did the right thing. I love this. And you see this all through the scriptures. They linked the person with the greatest need in the room with Jesus. Do you ever think what the mother-in-law's going through? She's trying to just go, you know what? I feel older than everybody. Okay, I feel like I don't fit in. I'm in the way. I wish I wasn't here. And maybe a lot of people don't have time for mother-in-laws. A lot of people don't have time for these people like, oh, you have this violent fever. We tend to stay away from those people. We tend to say, don't get it. Rather than to see something like that as a teaching opportunity or a ministry opportunity. And so here, she might be going, I don't know. I feel so out of it. I feel older. I don't fit in. And don't bother Jesus. You know what I say? Bother him, if you will. Because he's got the power to do something about it. So, remember, he's between these two services, right? Just cast out a demon. He's going to do a lot more at night. And yet now he has time for a mother-in-law. Has time for it. I just love that. Say, I have time for one person. Kind of tucked away on the side. I have time. And it's very interesting. In the Greek, it says he went up, he leaned over like the doctor does. He takes her by the hand, rebukes the fever, and lifts her up. And heals her just like that. Now, her response, did you ever notice it? Her response is she gets up immediately and starts serving Jesus and everybody else. In my estimation, she's already light years ahead of a lot of Christians. Seriously. A lot of us just don't get it. We're here to, Lord, bless my business. Lord, make me feel better. Make me happy. And we just don't understand the concept. He has a lot more for us than that. He wants to bless, and that's no problem. But why are we saved? Why are we saved? What is our part in all this? And that's why she goes, by the way, I'm going to help out. It's immediately she just jumps in and starts serving Jesus Christ. I think it's so neat. Now, other people, I had a friend years ago. When I recommitted my life, he got saved. The first time he ever prayed to ask the Lord into his heart. And I stayed here. He left and didn't do a thing with it. Just kind of walked away from the Lord. So one night, he's had a surfing accident. ruptured his spleen, I believe it was conked out, wakes up on the operating room table to hear the doctor tell the nurse, call his folks, he's not going to make it. Guess what kind of prayer he had after that? Lord, if you save my life, I will serve you the rest of my days. The Lord saved him. The Lord healed him. When even the doctor just said, he's going to die. Yet he's not done a thing with it. Just kind of walked away, doing his own thing. Certain things in his life refused to give up, and it just kind of sucked him back into it. How about you? Do you understand God has such a wonderful plan? It starts with forgiveness. It starts with the joy of the Lord as our strength, but also includes, Lord, I want to express my appreciation. I want to express my thanks by serving in some capacity. When I first came here, I didn't know what to do. Then I read that verse. You're familiar with it, Colossians 3:17. Whatever you do, whether it's in word or in deed, do it unto the Lord. And that's how I started. Whenever I thought, okay, and pick up trash. Still pick up trash. Now, quick recovery helps too. She was cured, healed, ready to go, and she's home. Quick recovery. Others were like, no. I need a long time here. Now, application. Let's bring this home. If Jesus were to come to my church today, or to my house today after church, would I have to rearrange something? Would I have to say, stay right there? I know there's a screen door between us, but just stay outside. I was sharing this week at Calvary Chapel, Coleman Mine High School, and did a couple of classes with them. I just love to do it. And I again told them what I've told you guys. Here's my laptop. I have a home computer. I have an office computer. You can check them anytime. Anytime. I can check them. I want to be clean. I want to be accountable. Is there something you need to clean up? Is there something? How about this one? Am I the same at home as I am in church? Let's face it, we all put on our Sunday best over here. And rightly so, I wouldn't want you to see your worst, okay? What a miserable, depressing service. Just everybody's at their worst. But are you the same at home? Do you practice the presence of Christ? That's what we have that sign on our house. Christ is the unseen listener of every conversation, guest at every meal, whatever. We do. We do that. It's not just a saying, it's a lifestyle. And we have found that it helps us to have self-control, realizing it's not just two chairs in this room, there's three, if you will. Me, Karen, and the Lord. And the Lord really wants He wants me to treat His daughter as a princess. Amen? I thought I'd hear some women say amen. Amen. Sash, you said amen. I said girls. Okay. He wants the women to treat the men as princess. Princess. I said it. Princess. Sorry. To where you're practicing the presence of Christ. You've seen this before with my phone illustration. Suppose you had, this job interview 3 times and you go, oh man, this next phone call is it. It is do or die, and of all times, the wife wants to get into it. And we call it the sin against the sin. Where you're not gonna, you can say that about me, well, I'm bringing out the big guys. And it just gets worse and worse and worse, and now you're screaming, and the phone rings. It might be that job. How do you answer? Hello? Yes, this is Mike. And you see what it tells me? You have self-control. If you know there's a third presence in the room, if you will. If Christ is there, and you realize this is not just my wife, it's His daughter. And all of a sudden, treat her with that kind of respect. Sometimes I've told people, okay, you're on this side of the room. The bride is on this side of the room. Put a chair in the middle, that's Jesus Christ. Anything you say to her has to go through Him. and then you begin to practice the presence of Christ. That's how you're the same at home as you are in church. All right? Do we avoid that person with the cold fever? Or do we see it as a ministry opportunity? And here, ooh, can I pray with my mother-in-law? Can I pray with the people who really know me? Now, I happen to have a very godly mother-in-law, and she was just visiting us for 6 weeks. Boy, do I have some illustrations. No, it was wonderful. You know, it really was. It's just that I am coming for 6 weeks. Oh, okay. No, I'm the one that got the ticket. And she's easy. She's so simple and easy to get along with. But you know, her daughter died. Her other daughter died this past last year, May 31st, or March 31st. And there was a day where it was so obvious it's really hitting Jean, the mother-in-law. And so her and Karen and I prayed. She didn't pray a lot, she cried a lot. But it's okay to pray together because we know the real other person. I had a roommate years ago in this church who outside he was known for being wild. Mike Sachs, if you and Mike Sachs will tell a better story of this, but he was just wild. He was the dirt bike rider, and he was the guy that I told about. He would be so tired in Bible study, he'd take off his shirt and lay down in the middle of the living room and fall asleep. And that's when Pastor Bill Stoneberger took a water pistol one night and wake up. Anyway, here, Sachs was just, everybody else was thinking, oh yeah, that guy's crazy. Here's my roommate. And we prayed together. And I knew a side of Mike Sachs that no one else knew. That guy's heart was as tender as could be. And then we thought all that other outside stuff. But it's because we got to pray together. If you knew somebody and you're growing up together and you're in the wild times and then you both get saved, is Jesus real enough that you can pray with that person? You know, as iron sharpens iron, you get to know him better and better. How about this? Do I ever go through that I would serve Jesus if only? It's called an excuse. Well, if only this was better, or that was gone. You know, we need to be like this mother-in-law. What about this? I love this thought. Here's the mother-in-law. And I'm just picturing something, you know, and it's like, you know, it's six months later, 6 years later. And she's walking around Capernaum and just everything's wrong and, you know, and this is not happening and this is right, everything's against me. And maybe she walks in the house and out of nowhere she sees the bed. She goes, you know what, I was laying in that bed once. I was sick as could be and Jesus touched me. Do you have those things in your life where you walk by and, whoa, I remember what Jesus did in my life, and I can't deny it, and the same Lord is with me now. Finally, see, remember the guys linked the neediest person in the room with Jesus. This morning, are you that person? You know, because if you are, and if you're like the mother-in-law, you don't want to be known. You might feel like you don't fit in. You might feel like you're the exception to being blessed here. And the Holy Spirit right now is linking you with Jesus to give you hope, a future, to give you cleansing, new beginning, restoration. Amen? Then you have the guys come back up here. That's worship. Let's stand and close with some worship. Father, we're yours. And there's a bit of that mother-in-law in every one of us where there's times we just say, not now. There's times we just think this is lousy timing. And there's times we just want to be any place but in the room. But we would love a fresh touch of Jesus Christ.
Come thou fount, every to my heart to sing out streams of bliss never cease, for the songs of life teach me some melodious song sung by flaming tongues of faces I'm fixed upon, name of God's redeeming. Oh, to praise how great a debt daily I'm constrained to keep. Let thy goodness like a fan by my wandering heart to thee. To wander grow to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, take it, seal it for thy courts of oh, to praise how great a day
cleansing us. Thank you, you've got a plan to use us. We want to love you. We want to serve you. In Jesus' name, amen.